I like this.
Yeah. Now phone. To all the ladies in the place with style and grace, allow me to lace these lyrical douches in your bushes. Who rock grooves and make moves with all the mommies. The back of the club, sipping my wet is where you find me. The back of the club, macking holes, my crew's behind me. Mad question asking, blunt passing, music lasting. But I just can't quit because one of these honeys Biggie got to creep with, sleep with, keep the ep a secret. Why not? Why blow up my spot? Cause we both got hot. Now check it. I got more Mac than Craig and in the bed. Believe me, sweetie, I got enough to feed the needy. No need to be greedy. I got mad friends with Benzes. See notes by the layers. True fucking players. Jump in the Rover and come over. Tell your friends jump in the GS3. I got the chronic by the tree. Throw your hands in the air if you's a true player. I love it when you call me Big Pop. To the honeys getting money, playing niggas like dummies. I love it when you call me Big Pop. You got a gun up in your waist, please don't shoot up the place. Why? Cause I see some ladies tonight that should be having my baby. Straight up, honey, really, I'm asking. Most of these niggas think they be macking, but they be acting. Who they attracting with that line? What's your name? What's your sign? Soon as he buy that wine, I just creep up from behind and ask you what your interests are. Who you be with? Things to make you smile. What numbers to dial? You gon' be here for a while. I'm gon' call my crew. You gon' call your crew. We can rendezvous at the bar around 2. Plans to leave, throw the keys to little C's. Pull the truck up front and roll up the next blunt so we can steam on the way to the telly. Gon' fill my belly. A T-bone steak, cheese, eggs, and Welch's grape. Conversate for a few, cause in a few we gon' do what we came to do. Ain't that right, boo? Forget the telly, we just go to the crib and watch a movie in the jacuzzi. Smoke L's while you do me. I love it when you call me Big Pop. Throw your hands in the air if you's a true player. I love it when you call me Big Pop. To the honeys getting money, playing niggas like dummies. I love it when you call me Big Pop. You got a gun up in your waist, please don't shoot up the place. Wow. Cause I see some ladies tonight that should be having my baby.
How you living, Biggie Small?
In mansion and Benzes, giving ends to my friends, and it feels stupendous. Tremendous cream, fuck $1 and a dream. Still tote gas strapped with infrared beams. Chopping O's, smoking line optimals, money holes and clothes, all a nigga knows. A foolish pleasure, whatever. I had to find the buried treasure, so grams I had to measure. However, living better now, coochie sweater now. Drop top BMs, I'm the man, girlfriend.
Honey, check it. Tell your friends to get with my friends. We could be friends. Shit, we could do this every weekend. That's right. Alright? Is that alright with you? Yeah. Keep banging.
I love it when you call me Big Pop. Throw your hands in the air if you's a true player. I love it when you call me Big Pop. To the honeys getting money, playing niggas like dummies. I love it when you call me Big Pop. You got a gun up in your waist, please don't shoot up the place. Wow. Cause I see some ladies tonight that should be having my baby. Check it out. Now folks shit for that ass. Puff Daddy, Biggie Smalls, Junior Mafia, represent baby.
What's up, everybody? Your host, Demetris Higashikata here, and this is a Gen Z perspective. Today, I got my long awaited guest, Antisocial Socialite, here with me today, and we're going to break down toxic relationship traits and habits. But before we get into that, I'll say this. College is so unbelievably time taxing that really and truly this platform has been a tertiary priority for me. I try to fit in shows when I can, but listen, this is going to have to be the way it is. I'll just fit in shows where I can because school comes first. So I can accomplish what I can accomplish and everything. Hit the like button on the way in, subscribe if you're a new content viewer, and support your content creators. Go ahead, Auntie.
Hey
Introduce yourself.
everybody. um Salute to everyone. This is the first live stream I've done in 2023. So it's an honor and a privilege. And I appreciate Dimitri. He never forgot, I never forgot that we agreed a long time ago to do this collaboration. And I'm really looking forward to the topic tonight. I'm really grateful that he's taken the time out of his schedule to actually put this presentation together. I am a guest. I'm in his house, so what he says goes, and I'm really looking forward to tonight. So it's going to be a good one. It's good to see you back, Dimitri, and I appreciate school comes first. So keep up that great work, and this is going to be a good one.
Don't I know it? So you heard Auntie say it, but this has really been a long time coming. You know, Bronzebird said it too. He said about time, and I know that's right. It's been like 3 years in the making. Like we first started talking about this in 2020. So yeah, it really has been a long time coming, and I was really excited all week to finally be able to do this. I don't know about you, but toxic relationship traits. What are some things that come into mind, Auntie?
It's actually quite funny that you say that because a lot of behavior is actually really toxic. And the more you look into it, the more you realize any and everybody to an extent can be a little bit toxic. Things that we get told to do in terms of trying to take control of a situation with another person. We may think, oh, I'm just trying to help this person come around to my way of thinking. But it's actually, it can be quite manipulative. And I know you're going to get into it, so I don't want to kind of rush ahead. But I always thought toxic behavior was really extreme and very ugly. And in some respects, it is, but like, I always thought of the extreme stuff like physically being abusive or something like this, or fits of rage and things like this. But toxic behavior can be a lot more subtle that I'm realizing. And it's something that you're harming that other person in the relationship. And the psychological scarring is sometimes worse than physical scarring because the person doesn't even realize they're being psychologically affected by toxic behavior from somebody else until maybe years down the line. If somebody's hurting you physically, you know this person is harming you. But when a person is saying or doing certain things that is very subtle, you may not realize at the time that you're being very negatively impacted. So when I think of the word toxic, I really have to think deeper than just surface level, the obvious stuff. And that's why I'm really glad we're going to do this topic, because when you begin to discuss what you want to go through, I realized that we all have a tendency to actually display very toxic behavior and not realize that this is harming another person.
And that's facts. We all have the capacity to harm one another, especially in a relationship. In the beginning stages when infatuation still plays a role, and you both kind of, when you're infatuated, you tend to kind of, like, I don't want to say pull punches, but you're very careful because you don't want the person to leave. But when the infatuation wears off, and when differences are made apparent, and differences of mindset and ways of living life come into play, conversations can be actually kind of hurtful. And that's how you get certain things happening to people, and why people in this, specifically in this modern age, are quick to cut people off, especially in a conversational setting. And I find it kind of weird, because it's kind of like this whole anti-relationship culture is starting to form. And really and truly, that's no good, especially for societal building, and especially for Black people trying to make something better for ourselves. That's
Yeah, definitely.
exactly
I think,
what we don't want to happen.
yeah, I think the issue is we have way too much at our disposal. I've said it so many times. And it's like a microwave culture. We literally, it's like, oh, this is not working for me. I don't have the resilience to make it work or to try and push through. And I'm not saying stay in a situation that's clearly detrimental to your physical health, your mental health, or financially, it's clearly a problem. I'm talking about like small challenges or disagreements and things like this. There's, conflict resolution skills. A lot of people are not developed in that area. The moment they have a little hiccup in the relationship, it doesn't go exactly their way, they're looking around for a new partner, or they're just looking for the exit. And it's like, it's not really like buses. Your luck does run out, kind of thing. It can run out, if you keep on disregarding people. Eventually, you may find yourself out there stranded, because you realize, oh, that guy, the first guy or whatever, or the first girl I was dating, they really weren't that bad, but I just felt like I could do better. And you kept on throwing people away until eventually you end up in a situation where you're by yourself. It's a crazy culture that we live in, but it's because people, in my opinion, don't have the mindset to stay in something long term and make something work. They just like, if this is not working for me immediately, then I'm just going to bail and go and do me, kind of thing. So when in times gone by, when people had to kind of stick together, they found ways to make relationships work. But now it's like, why do I have to? I've got so many options. But do you really have that many options? you know, Only
I
that person
I
knows.
agree. I agree. And you know, part of me, like when you were talking about it, like just now, I started to think like that's sort of truly pathetic to not want to build yourself, especially in the when we're talking about conflict resolution skills and relationship repair skills, to be able to come to your partner and say, hey, I was wrong, I'm sorry, I know that I hurt you in this, and I realized how much it affected you when I said this. So can we go forward, move past this, with me working on that specific area where I am deficient in? And of course, it's not going to sound exactly like that, but it's going to sound somewhat similar. And oh, that just gets under my skin when people don't have the guts to admit when they're wrong and to fix when they've wronged someone, because you were brave enough to enter into this situation, because let's be honest, relationships are risks. But when you don't take responsibility for the situation and just throw your hands up, I don't know, that just gets under my skin. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I don't really like dealing with people who can't admit that they're wrong. Not that I'm always right, and not that I like to admit that I'm wrong either. Like, most people don't really like correction. But I tend to stay away from people who won't accept responsibility or say they're wrong, because I've been in that situation before with people. And what I've come to realize is, if there's a situation, even if you were not the biggest contributor to the problem, somehow you will end up being made to be the villain of the piece. Like, they will not take any accountability. Everything will be your fault. And so I don't mind taking some of the blame if you're going to take the blame for what you're responsible for. But if you're not going to take any blame, then I can't. I'm sorry, I can't do that. So I try to avoid people who, or have very little interaction with people who can't be accountable, because at some point things are going to go left and they're not going to own up to the part they played in creating that situation. So that is something that really gets under my skin as well. And it's about selflessness, it's about sacrifice. If you know that you're doing something that's hurting the other person, you should go and say I'm sorry and try to make it right. But for some people, their mentality is, I just want to take. So it doesn't even occur to them to reach out to somebody and say, hey, I can see my actions are negatively impacting you, because they don't really care. And people have to do self reflection. What do I want, and what do I want to give? What do I want to share? What do I want to bring to this relationship? How do I want my presence in this situation to make that other person's life better? And if the other person feels the same way, then you have a relationship that's based on reciprocation and sacrifice. And that's going to be a very healthy relationship, or a healthier relationship than just, I want to get as much without putting in as much. I can get as much and put in as little as possible, which is what a lot of people are trying to do. They're trying to basically get as much out of a partner that they possibly can without putting much into the equation. And that's why there's a lot of distrust out here as well, because you don't know, is this person just saying that because they want something, or is this person genuine? Like, what's really going on here? So there's a lot of miscommunication, a lack of communication out here, and people not being authentic about what they genuinely want, and that all those things create a lot of problems further down the line.
I really agree there. In the American Black community, or the ADOS community, we're always talking about, generational wealth, but it seems like this culture that we just talked about here, where people don't put up with anything or are not willing to cooperate with other people, it seems to be like this counterculture to the generational wealth conversation. Because how do you get to a place where you can build generational wealth for like your children and your children's children if you can't stand to be around each other? If you don't work together, then that's not going to be a conducive environment for growth.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I feel like people need to the generational wealth conversation is very interesting, because at the end of the day, a lot of people are not really uh, building up a huge amount of generational wealth. But maybe they're setting aside some savings, they've got a life insurance policy, maybe they're buying a home or something, which they're then leaving to their kids in a will. and that's about it. But a lot of people are still not getting even to that point where they're leaving, 10 grand, 20,000 or whatever, a house, a car, or something, even to their kids. And this is why I always have to really examine who is talking about generational wealth, because this is something that's going to come down the line in generations if we can turn this ship around somewhat. Because to have generational wealth, you have to have people who want to build strong families. You have to have people who want to put the needs of their family and then the needs of the so-called community above their own personal needs. And then generational wealth will become almost like a byproduct of that, because we'll have family businesses, and we will have people having a certain amount of children that will work in these businesses. So you can actually have the generational wealth. So I like the idea, and it's something that it can be done, and it is happening still in 2023 or whatever. But a lot of people, they just, it depends who says we care about generational wealth. There are some people I hear that, and I know that's cap. They're just saying that because it sounds good. That's the buzzword at the moment, because the people are not trying to build strong foundations. So how are you going to have this so-called generational wealth that you talk about? Not you, Dimitri, but certain people. When I hear them talking about this generational wealth, I'm like, but you can't even get on with a partner and have some kids and and build something. So what generational wealth are you really talking about out here? But yeah, in order to have that generational wealth, we need people who are willing to put the needs of their family and their community first. And as we build a strong community, you're going to service that community with businesses, and that's where the generational wealth will come in. But it's not hard, but it's not hard to understand, but to get people to agree to put something above themselves, it's tough. That's the real the $64,000 question. How do we convince people to put their family and the needs of the community above their own individual needs?
Okay, that's something to think about, because I don't know how you'd pitch something like that, especially when everybody wants to be like this pseudo therapist and nothing is above the self sort of conversation, where they put themselves over everything else. I don't know how you'd sell that. I really don't. Not
I
right
think the
now.
tide is changing. I think the tide is changing. The manosphere, I do, for all its faults, I give it props and praise, because it has started a conversation where people's eyes are being opened. Because, obviously in the West, people are very free. They're free to the point where they're tripping themselves up, unfortunately. I'm not going to make this spiritual, but this, even the Bible says, don't let your liberty or your freedom be a stumbling block. Like, we can trip ourselves up when we have too much choice and too much freedom. And that's what we have in the West. Like, all restraint has been removed, and people don't know how to govern themselves properly. And I'm not saying I'm perfect, that's for sure, but people have literally gone out of control. And I think more and more people are realizing that all this freedom is not good. Like, people are going to the extreme with fashion. They went to the extreme with things like drugs. A lot of these things have gone down because people have said, I'm looking at my parents' generation, what they didn't leave us, what they didn't teach us, what they didn't do for us, how their lifestyle has impacted their lives. And I don't want that. We know that millennials and zillennials are having more, less sex and things like that. Certain things that were prevalent 20, 30 years ago is all going down because people are actually wising up. So the trends are good, but now we need to go. We don't just want negative things to go down. we also want the positive things to start going up, like, marriage, family, and that's going to be tough because a lot of people just want to do them. They just want to enjoy their life. So it hopefully, as we have more of these conversations, people will weigh up the situation. You know, you can be free and be alone, or you could kind of try and get it together and see if you can find somebody that you could go off into the sunset with. And we're in the West, we're quite comfortable, but if things change, you're soon going to see people running to grab a partner and get married. Like during the pandemic, weddings went up. I think a lot of people were scared. They thought, like, what's going to happen if this pandemic goes from bad to worse?
Yes,
Like the UK.
stagflation is about to happen. So partnering is about to go out, even if it's artificial.
So you think partnering is going to go up?
Maybe not marriage, but partnering definitely.
I mean, it's a start. A lot of people can't even get partnered. So it's going in the right direction if people are starting to think about being in committed relationships and the benefits that that brings, because we've seen a number of women coming out now, in particular, not really the men, but women talking about, in my prime, I wasted my prime years. I'll hold my hand up as well. I was one of those people, and so, you think you have time, you think that, there'll always be another relationship around the corner, blah blah blah. And then, you wake up one day and you're like, where are all the good men? You understand? So women coming out and being honest about what's really going on, like, okay, these women are talking about being hot 40-year-olds, hot 50-year-olds, and their escapades as older women, but secretly they're crying into the pillow with boxed wine. Them coming out and telling the dark side of that single woman life is making a lot of young women wake up and realize, I don't want to be like that. It's not sunshine and roses being 50 and no prospects on the horizon. And I'm glad a lot of women are coming out. And I mean, the internet is a blessing and a curse, but this is definitely helping a lot of young women realize that your window is limited. Like, in the blink of an eye, you're going to be a middle-aged woman, and you'll be astounded how options, depending on how you look and your social life and things like that, it can really just disappears. So um it's a scary thought. There's something a lot of young women don't realize, because unfortunately they have older women who gloss over it, who glamorize being older, glamorize being single, and they don't tell these young girls it's not all it's cracked up to be. Like, sorry, I know I'm going long, but like, if I have an issue, I'm tired of going to my neighbor next door and asking her husband if he could just shimmy up a ladder for me and fix the fire alarm that's going off, or look at a leak. It's a little bit embarrassing. It's like, why don't you have your own husband to do that?
Yeah.
Stop,
it's
stop
like
asking my
the Linda
husband to come
husband.
over to your place to shimmy up the ladder.
Right. It's literally like a Linda husband thing, and really, you should have your own. You should.
I know,
But
I wasted my best years. It's never too late for a shower of rain. And I am actually quite an antisocial person. Like, I'm bordering on a hermit. Like, if I didn't have to go to work, I probably wouldn't really go out. So it limits my when I was younger, I used to be way more outgoing. But as I've got older and I'm just like, oh, I can't be bothered, I just don't go anywhere. So the prospect of the postman being the one is very limited. And even him I don't see very often. Even him I don't see. I hear the door the letterbox go, and then I probably go back to sleep. And then a few hours later, after he's probably gone back to the depot or has already reached home, then I'm like, did I hear letters come through the door? So even if the postman was the one, he and I never make eye contact for us to meet. So it's over.
It's not over. I mean, there's other places you
It's
can go to meet like other introverted people
I
because
know. I think they need to start a page or some type of dating service for
yeah,
introverted
introverts
people.
only.
Yeah, and we will all just awkwardly stand in the corners playing on our phones, pretending that we're cool, and all we're doing is like checking the date on the calendar because we don't want to make eye contact with anybody. We just stand there for 2 hours, and then afterwards we leave and say, "This was nice. This was great." It's like same time next week. Oh no, I need to recover
Yeah.
after all this
That,
activity.
that's an idea. I mean, because
I was
like
actually
Bronsford
thinking
said
about
just now,
starting something
we
like
have a
that.
plethora of places we can go to. It's just a matter of fact, will you show up or not?
I know. I'm loving the introvert memes on social media. They are so true to life. Like you have a conversation with somebody for an hour and then you have to go and lie down in a dark room because you're so emotionally drained. And I never realized that's what it was. I just thought I was weird. Well, I probably am a bit weird, but I thought I was more weird and like something was really wrong with me because I would go to parties, but then I would always end up like out on the balcony by myself, or I would end up in the kitchen helping. And I was like, this was a great party. It's like, but you didn't dance, you didn't do much. You were just in the kitchen helping serve plates of food. I was like, yeah, that was really awesome. That was perfect, you know. So when I
That
went online
I
and I
hear what you
saw,
mean.
yeah,
Keep,
when I
keep
went
going.
online and I saw how true to life like introvert people just generally are, I was like, wow, I found my tribe. I found my people.
Yeah, you're not weird. It's just introverted. It's just introverts, and maybe I will do a video on how like society just like treats introverts like there's something wrong with you. No, there's nothing wrong with you. You can socialize. It's just that you prefer not to. You prefer to keep
Yeah,
to
your
yourself.
circle is tight. Like Bronsberg asked, how are you weird? For example, I dance a lot to when there's no music. Like I'll think about some food and I'll start dancing and I'll just make up a tune and I'm really going for it. Like I'm giving it everything I've got in the house when I'm by myself. And
That
then
first
I
bite
just
makes you
thought,
dance.
uh,
That first bite of food, it makes you dance.
yeah, like when I think about it, I'm already like I'm doing a tango, mixed with a cha cha cha. But it's like, but most people like wouldn't understand. And then you go out and you're basically doing a very calm two step, and then you think like, why is it when I'm around people I can't dance or I can't really dance, but when I'm at home I'm like, yeah, I'm jumping on the chair and I'm really pretending I'm in the club, like I'm a center of attention. And it's like most people wouldn't don't do that. They're like when they're by themselves, they're like, oh my gosh, I'm so bored, and they come alive around people. So I didn't realize that's just what an introvert is like. We really value like our own time, our own space. We live a lot in our heads, and so we don't need to always go outside of ourselves or seek lots of people
To
to
have
get energy.
fun.
In fact, we find it draining.
Yeah, being around a whole bunch of people at once is draining.
Yeah, and I did physically feel that like a lot of people talking. I can't concentrate. I can't focus on who I'm listening to. I'm literally, if two people start talking at the same time, I'm literally, my head is swaying from side to side because I'm literally trying to listen to both people at the same time. And then I become really overwhelmed. And I noticed like anytime I was hanging around a lot of people, I often found that I would then somehow drift outside where I'd be by myself and I'd be like, finally, some peace and quiet. And I thought, I'm really becoming a misery. Like, keep the noise down. Stop slamming the door. Why are you talking so loud? And I was like, and I realized it's just bring it down a notch. That's just everybody stay calm. So I have a couple of close friends and we can talk for hours, but I don't really like if I see too many people getting close, I find that I'll even sabotage the relationship a little bit just to kind of limit the closeness because it's like it's not enough just to say we're friends, but then like I never call you, I never text you, I never do any of that stuff. So
well,
I would
it's
rather
just the
not.
fact that it's draining to keep up with that many people.
Yeah, some people if they have a nice friendship circle, you can mingle with all at the same time. But for me, that is too much. Like,
I
even
mean, I went
family.
through something similar like back in my freshman year, and I had socialized so much that I had built up a whole bunch of acquaintances that literally every time I walked out the door, I had like six people saying hey to me and trying to talk to me while I'm on my way to class, and it was annoying. No lie, it was
It
annoying.
is a lot.
It's a
It is
lot.
a
It
lot.
really is. And most times I just found myself staying in my room, truth be told,
And it's like,
because I
on the
didn't want to
one
deal
hand,
with
it's
it.
good. Yeah, on the one hand, it's good because you get to focus on you. Friends and family and connections, they do open doors for you. It is life in some respects can be harder when when you isolate yourself because unless you're motivated or unless you've got hookups of your own, sometimes that friend does open the door. But then what comes with that is you know the continual commitment. Like, why don't you call me? A lot of people, most people are extroverted, so they really want your time, they really want your presence, and they find it weird that you don't call for 6 months or something. Like, do you know what I mean? Because they talk to their friends and family on a way more frequent basis. And the people who know me understand, like, there's no malice or anything like that. It's just I'm there. If you need me, pick the phone, but don't think I'm going to call you every day. I just can't do that. And if you call me, chances are I'm not going to answer. But text me and I'll text you back eventually. The people who like me, they know me, and that's why it's just easier for me to have a tight circle because
Same.
trying to explain to people why I don't call. Like the amount of people when they see me, like, do you know how many times I called you? Did you really? And it's like the phone is ringing beside me, and I'm just like, oh, not a conversation, not now. I can't. You should have given me notice.
But Bronzebird, hold on, Angie. Like, here's the thing: you literally said you're an ambivert, so you switch between how you're feeling. It really depends on how you're feeling. You might
Who
be
me? Who
ambivert.
me or
No, I'm talking about
Bronzebird?
Bronzebird. Like, it seems like from what you said, Bronzebird, you're ambivert type introverted. So you're more introverted leaning, even though you're an ambivert. So it's different because introverts don't like attention. We just don't. We'll sometimes we'll go a whole day without saying anything.
That's true. And the
So
funny thing is this,
yeah,
an introvert is actually a very good public speaker. I was looking at some stuff on introversion, and that was one of the things they said. And to be honest with you, if I feel comfortable enough, I can be a good public speaker because I can just put on a persona and I can just deliver the message like a performance. Because, if you're an introvert, you may have to psych yourself up just to do basic things like receive a phone call, make a phone call. So you get into the zone, you get on with it. Whereas a person who's like an extrovert, they're more conscious of what people think. And so they find it actually harder to perform or whatever, or speak publicly. So in certain situations, an introverted person can actually be quite outgoing. But generally, if it's just like a personal situation, like a party or some type of social function, we are very reserved. We're like, I'm just here hiding in the back. I just pretend I'm not here.
I tell myself have an a-hole moment. What does that mean? Explain. But because we're actually about to get into the topic of the day. But yeah, go ahead and explain that, Bronze, and I'll respond in the comment section. But yeah, to anybody watching right now, this is not the toxic relationship trait
Yeah.
and habit. This is just introverts being introverts.
We haven't seen each other for a while, so we've got a lot to get off our chest.
Right. And I don't know if you've like researched Auntie about like introverts in a relationship, but they don't go nowhere. They just be all up under each other.
Really?
Yeah, most times they don't go anywhere and they just be together. They talk, they do at home activities, and
Yeah, I don't mind. I don't mind
yeah,
being. I don't want to be at home all the time,
yeah, not all
but
the time, but most of the
I
time.
definitely like because if I really like you, then I don't mind spending time with you. But if it's a strain on me, well, we're not going to be together. But if it's a strain, then I'm going to be running away. No, I'm serious. Like I've realized life is too short to deal with somebody who drains you. And because I feel it, like I literally feel like there's a heavy rock on my back when I'm around people who drain me. Like, God, I literally can't stand up under the weight of this emotional burden. Yeah, that's how I literally feel when I'm around certain people. So I just have to exit so I can breathe, kind of thing. So I think that's a good segue into toxic people because being with a toxic person will definitely make you feel like you have a weight on your back.
That's big facts. Takers, that's what I call them, like drainers and takers. They they can care about you, but if they notice that they have a that draining effect on you, then I tend to think that they'll try to make a change or they'll just break it off with you because a, a drainer really doesn't concern themselves too much with other people. They're kind of not self-aware, if you know what I mean.
Definitely. They're 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 so absorbed with getting. It's like by any means necessary, and so that's obviously detrimental. It's like in that sense they're more like a parasite then, because in a parasitic relationship, the parasite is benefited, but the host is harmed. And it sounds like in this situation where you say these people are takers, the person who is being taken from is being basically consumed by the other person. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, but in like a not in a literal sense, but you know what I'm saying, like metaphorical sense. Like they're they're having this literal draining effect on you. Like your energy is not the same. You're kind of tense around them. You don't know whether they're really for or against you. They literally drain you. It's hard to describe unless you're actually in this situation yourself, or I've been in that situation. I've been in that situation. I've been with a young woman who was a drainer, and I had to cut that off real quick, because it physically affects you.
Mm. I've been in that situation, but it was somebody I worked with. And at first, I didn't realize that they were a narcissist. And I know we throw that word around a lot, but it it happened that one day there was a show, like a soap opera. Uh, what could I compare it to? Not as spicy as Dallas, but it's a soap opera that runs, uh, every evening. And this person asked me, like, "Do you know what gaslighting is?" And I was like, "Yeah, gaslighting is when people try to basically make you think you're crazy." And she was like, "Oh no, it's not. I didn't hear anything about crazy, but there's this storyline in this show." And after I went away and I started thinking about it, I realized this person had been gaslighting. And then, the narcissist is so overconfident that they feel like I can keep on dropping hints and crumbs, and this person is so stupid they'll never realize I'm talking about myself. Like, I am the narcissist here, So it dawned on me one day, I'm like, oh my gosh, this person has been manipulating me. They're a narcissist. But I I did wonder why every time I left from an interaction with this person, I felt so drained. I literally, the prospect of interacting with them was already stressful. And when I left, I literally had to just like sit down and compose myself because I was so exhausted from like doing these mental battles with this person who was trying to say different things. And you know they said one thing today, and then they said the opposite the next day, and you're trying to keep up with all the stories and the demands. And I was like, why is it every time I leave this person's presence, I feel so drained? And it's like, then afterwards, when they asked me that question, all the pieces just fell into place. I was like, oh my gosh, I was being, I was being manipulated, but it was so subtle. I didn't even realize it until this person kind of finally gave themselves away. So you're right. A lot of people don't really understand what manipulation is like, or what it feels like to be in the presence of someone who really is like an energy vampire, until they come out like on the other side. You
And
you
that's
wouldn't.
facts. That's facts.
Yeah.
And people, and I really, really dislike when it happens, especially in the relationship dating space. They try to make manipulation out to be, oh, it's only harmful if you let it happen to you. It's even if it's like attempted, it's harmful to you still, because especially if you have to be around that person.
It
It's
is. Yeah.
and it can show itself in friendships. It can show itself in coworker relationships. It can show itself in relationships too. And just the it's so weird to describe, but it's when you recognize an attempt like that, it you have to back them off of you. You have to back them off of you physically or verbally.
Yeah, I think for a lot of these people, because their ability to manipulate is so subtle, and they often don't just work on you, they try to work on people around you. Sometimes you just have to cut them off completely, because they come, we want to see the good in people, we want to give them the benefit of the doubt, and then oftentimes what what they show us is not what they show other people. So other people are like, that person's really nice. And you're like, no, there's something about that person that's off, but I can't really put my finger on it. And so other people are telling you, no, that person's nice. So you're thinking, is it me or is it them? So sometimes you just have to cut that person off altogether because you want to believe that they can change or that they are sorry or they know what they're doing, or when you tell them, when you do this it hurts my feelings and things like that. And then you get a little slither of a nice person and you think, oh, I knew there was a nice person in there. And then that's how they reel you back in close enough to kind of attack you again. So you don't want to be caught in this push and pull with them where they're reeling you in, they're abusing you, they're discarding you, or you're moving away and then they draw you back in. You have to recognize it for what it is and just cut off the contact. You know, this person, I had to complain and I actually had to have them moved on. It was that bad because everybody was complaining about this person after a while. So I just went to the manager and I said, look, we can't work with this person because their behavior is disruptive. And I literally stayed on the manager's case until they got removed because it was affecting my mental health. It was because it was causing me so much stress having to interact with this person.
I mean, that's real. And you can't be afraid to speak up in those situations. You really can't. Because really at the end of the day, you're the one who's going to have to live through your experiences. So
It's
yeah,
true.
you have to speak up in those situations. Now, like people like manipulators, like they will like try to coax or change the situation in their favor. And some classic examples of these, if you want to go there, are like simps, narcissists, scammers, and like
Hmm.
desperate people. And like
Okay, yeah.
they all follow under that like umbrella. And the only like true appropriate like defense against the manipulator is to arm yourself with the knowledge of how to deal with that situation. And you have to be steadfast in like saying no. You have to be steadfast in and mean it when you walk away. You can't be in between. And I know we sort of talked about the counterculture to the whole generational wealth people who want you to basically walk away at the drop of a dime. In this situation, I'd say walking away or distancing yourself from that person is really the only effective and appropriate way of dealing with the situation, because when you have a manipulator, when you catch on to them, sometimes that can manifest itself in like their anger, and because they'll be angry that you caught on to them or are accusing them of this thing, then that will be like they'll try to get physical with you.
And it's
And
so funny that you mentioned simps because a lot of the time we talk about simps being just men who pedestalize women, or and you can have female simps as well, actually. But would you put stalkers in that category as well?
I mean, they're toxic, but usually your stalker won't talk to you, right?
Okay,
But
because
what a stalker will do is they'll analyze your like day-to-day patterns, and they'll try to
okay,
insert themselves in at some place.
okay,
They'll
cool.
and then they'll start talking to you like they don't know you, even though they've been observing you for like a month.
Okay, wow. Okay, cool. Because I always say simps can be very dangerous because
Hmm.
the way that they are so invested in this person, this let's just say for the sake of conversation, we're talking about a male simp who is obsessing over a woman, he can become so possessive and he has this a fantasy in his mind. He's concocted this whole story and scenario about this woman, and he's become quite possessive to the point where he could actually become dangerous because he's so invested in this relationship, whether he has a relationship or not. You know, it's like he's really he's really so so caught up that he can become dangerous. And simping is not just bad for men's health or people's health in terms of, foregoing your own needs for a woman who's not reciprocating. But for some of these men, it it borders on obsession, and that's
Facts.
actually quite frightening. Yeah.
Like, how I don't get it. Like, how do you obsess over someone who you don't even know that in real life, and it's not even because obsession is such a scary thing, especially when you're talking about another person. That it and it's not like, how do I say this? It's not like the problem is the obsession itself. It's that it will lead to other things. It will
The
lead to
actions
scary
upon, yeah.
behaviors because obsession tends to come up like when people are talking about like fandoms and like fans of a specific creator or something or a music band, but it's the obsession that is the path itself that leads to harmful behaviors like following somebody all the way home, following the party bus all the way to the next destination, trying to get up on stage with somebody else, trying to get in close proximity to somebody who doesn't even know you.
Mm.
Like
It's like
I think you said something like similar on one of your live streams. Like this guy, he was quite literally chasing you.
well, yeah, that was a guy out at a supermarket. He
That's
was a
crazy.
really old man, but he he just wouldn't take no for an answer. And then he followed. I went on the bus with my friend one stop, and we got off and we started chatting again. And then when she walked off to go into her home, I turned around and this guy came across the road, and I was like, I left you at the supermarket. How did you manage to catch me up? Well, obviously, because we're standing here talking too long. But then when I kind of shooed him away and tried to walk, he still followed me. And then I started running and he started running behind me. And he was an old man. But, either I'm fast, either I'm slow or he's fast. But he was hot on my tail and I had to duck and dive down some alleyway and tried to quickly sprint to my house so he couldn't see where I lived. But he was on my case. It's crazy.
Hold on, because Bronzebird literally just said he was stalked once when he was younger. What's that like? Tell us down in the live chat if you'd be so kind. Um,
You see, I've always been quite anxious about stalking because I'm sure you have stories in the States. And there was this famous presenter. I mean, she was famous for the time, this was maybe the 2000s or even maybe the 90s. And there was a man who had been stalking her for some time. And eventually he walked up on her and he took her out. And right, I think it was right there on her doorstep or something. And it's like she complained about him, I think, and told the police and said, "This man is harassing me. He's outside my house, blah, blah, blah." And from that, I was always terrified of the concept of a stalker because I realized they don't just follow you, they don't just watch you, they don't just send you things and do weird things, which
yeah,
is
they're
creepy.
predators.
Yeah, they can actually be like, if I can't have you, no one can. They literally, some of them can be like that. And so that's why I was asking because the word stalker, it does strike fear into my heart. I know that for sure because like you said, they hide in the bushes, they lurk about, they act like they're strangers, but they've been monitoring your movements and things like that. And how many of us go about our day completely oblivious? We don't realize, like, didn't I see that man yesterday? Like,
Right, 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 right. No,
Like,
no, because I
how
was
many times?
literally about to say something because, like, when I was younger and I did not really understand everything that a stalker could be capable of, I was like, man, I ain't worried about no stalker because when they show me, because I'm very observant myself, so I know even though I might not remember somebody's name, I remember faces real well. So
Yeah,
if that person was to show their face around me again and they're coming for me, then I used to think like, ain't no problem. I'll just take them out when they show themselves. But no, no, no. They a stalker knows everything about you, pretty much. They make it
it's
their mission.
crazy. It's crazy and it's frightening because it's frightening what some people will do. Like, I met this guy while I was after I started my YouTube channel. I was on Facebook Messenger, and this guy started talking to me, and we weren't like flirty or nothing. It was just us being friendly and having conversation. But then he overstepped his boundary, like trying to ask me a lot of personal questions, and then trying to basically get into my details, like accessing my details for my computer and things like that, so he could
Oh
get more
nah.
information about me. And it's like, first and foremost, it's like, this is why people don't trust people. This is why people are nasty. Because people come through like they're normal and they're chill. And look at, there's a particular female YouTuber who does content with her husband. I'm not going to say their name. And they're notorious scammers, scamming
I know who
their
you're talking about. I was gonna say.
scamming their subscribers and people sending them money. And people are like, don't send them your cash app, don't send them your this, because they're going to clear your accounts, kind of thing. It's like, wow. And you're still in business. I can't believe it. On the run in Mexico.
That's crazy.
So it's like, who can you trust, really?
Well, me personally, I don't put none past nobody.
It's true.
And
So
to be
Bronzebird
honest, you can't be.
until you know that person face to face, and even then it's still risky, but
Yeah,
you're more
yeah, exactly.
you get a better feel for the person when you interact with them face to face. Then you can kind of see what you're working with a bit better.
And like that kind of like puts us onto our next toxic trait or habit, and that is that of the violent individuals. We kind of got into it when we were talking about stalkers, but in terms of people who you're in an actual relationship with, violence can manifest itself in like different ways. And I know, like, I remember seeing like something that like Anton Daniels said. Um,
Mm.
like they were on Lapeef Let's Talk, and if you like hit something and you're in an argument like with your partner, that counts as intimidation. So you can get I think you can get like a DB charge off that. And
Wow.
Anton was like, man, I bought everything in this house. I should be able to hit it if I want to, no matter if I'm mad or not, in argument or not. And I was, and Chicago really had to check him like, hey, bro, like, I understand, like, you bought the stuff, I get it, but the you live in the U.S., so the law is the law is the law. So I'm
I
not
can
saying like
imagine,
that
yeah.
Anton is a violent individual, but I'm saying watch for people who like their go-to is violence. And really and truly, when I think of like my relationship partner, like the girl that I'm with, I wouldn't I wouldn't raise a hand to her like at all. And so it's just hard for me to grasp that concept of people who are okay with hitting their partner.
Are you sure,
Like,
Dimitri? Are you sure? I'm joking.
yeah, I'm sure.
It's
Like
the way he said it.
I don't
I
even
wouldn't lift
raise
my
my
hand.
voice with her. So
I wouldn't lift my hand at all. I was like, oh, Dimitri. You're so sweet. You
Like
sound
I
confused,
don't even
boy.
raise my voice at her. So so
Yeah, I mean,
it's just uncomfortable, you know. The way I think about it is that is my other half. So
yeah,
why would I talk to my other half or raise my hand against my other half?
it's
So
true. It's like
oh
I remember I was at a dinner once with my ex, and we started to get into. It wasn't even a heated argument. We just got into a disagreement, and he got up and walked off. And he was, I was like, "What the hell did you just do?" And then he's like, "Oh, in case like you threw the plate or something." Now I've got a hot temper, but I have got a hot temper. Like I had a dream the other day where it was so weird. Like there was some guy, and then there was like this baby on my bed, and when there's no shoes in the room, you're not allowed to wear shoes in like you're not really allowed to wear shoes upstairs, to be honest with you. And he was in the door, and he wanted to say goodbye to the baby, and I was like, "Take off your shoes! Take off your shoes!" And then like before I knew it, I was just like wailing on the guy, and you could see like the look of fear in his eyes, like, "It's enough now, you've beaten me enough." And I was like, Jesus Christ, what am I doing? Like, you have a crazy temper, girl. You need to just, like, I let him go, and I was so ashamed, and like, how do I make this right, trying to smooth out his clothes, like, "I'm really sorry." The red mist descended, and I was like, I woke up like, oh my God, what am I doing? And I looked around, and there was no boy, there was no baby. I was like, oh, thank God it was a dream. Girl, you need to address your anger problem.
I mean, at least you said something like that. But people, so there are some people who think that's like normal,
Like
and
Christian
that's the
Rock.
weird part.
Like Christian. Is that how you say it? Christian?
Krishan,
Yeah. Like at any moment she will fly at you. I've seen clips of her literally just going off like a wild animal. And I'm like, God, this is so ugly. This is just
yeah, yeah, that's no good. Really and truly, like Blueface and Krishan are no good for each other, and that's
yeah.
just my. Actually,
People
no,
said
that's not an opinion. That's a fact.
yeah,
Because
definitely.
if y'all because in my mind, you shouldn't even really feel like be comfortable raising your voice at your partner. You
Yeah.
shouldn't feel comfortable doing that because in my mind, if you get into a heated argument with your partner, like after the argument, y'all should be apologizing to each other and not know 20 minutes later.
Yeah, definitely. Like, if you care about the person, and that's why I was so offended, because I was like, first and foremostly, I'm not gonna make a scene in a restaurant, because that's where we were. We were out having dinner, so I'm not gonna, make you wear a drink or something like that. I'm not. Well, I'm not gonna say I'm not that crazy, but I'd be tempted. But it's the chance of me doing it is very slim. But also, it's like we've never had an argument to the point where I've got angry and raised my voice or raised my hand. So why would you think I would do it now? Like, what the hell?
Yeah. But,
So yeah, it is crazy. It is crazy that people feel comfortable, but I feel like these are learned behaviors, and so you have people who are used to being dominated and they're passive, and you have people who have been raised to solve problems with that technique. I'm not making excuses for them, but people who are, let's say, for example, violent, they look for people who are intimidated by violence, so they know they will have leverage in that situation. So you know, let's look at Blueface and Krishan. Krishan knows how to manipulate that guy and
mhm.
how to make him feel sorry for her. When screaming and crying doesn't, like screaming at him doesn't work, she'll turn on the tears and start kind of wailing.
Still crying.
I saw one incident where Krishan started screaming and she had to be carried off. And then the guy who was doing the interview had to say to Blueface, just sit there and ignore her. And I was like, are we talking about two adult people here? Or is this like a child? Because she literally regressed to like 6 years old before our eyes. And she was like, ah, blah, blah, and like she almost cried, like, help me or something. And it's like, help you for what? You're literally kicking and screaming and you have to be carried out because you don't know how to behave. So it was crazy, and you could see it weighed on him a lot. Like, oh, I just want to go and help her, and I'm like, no, that's what she wants. Really and truly, you need to leave.
Oh,
You need to leave.
Bronze Bird said it. Bronze Bird said it.
She's
Bronze
a
Bird said
narcissist.
it first.
Yeah, she's
And
probably a very
a covert narcissist.
yeah, because when she doesn't get her own way, she starts to act very helpless and like a little child crying. So although she can be a bit of a bully, when that doesn't work, then she goes to, oh, woe with me. I need you. What am I going to do without you? And that kind of emotional manipulation, which is more covert. So it's very
I've
dangerous.
actually heard that Bronze before. But really, it's like nobody's really in the right or the wrong. They're just toxic for each other, and especially in a situation like theirs where physical abuse is very prevalent. So much so, like that you can see bruises whenever they go live, or see pictures of them together. Um, it's okay to love somebody from a distance, and you don't have to love them the same way you did, because then you're prone to actually go back to them, and that's how you get situations like the young ladies who flee a physical abuse situation, then they feel bad because the dude called them, and then they go back and then he clapped them. You don't have to love them in the same way that you did. Just hope that they get the help that they need. But really and truly, in those situations, you need to go, because it's very clear that nothing nothing is going to change, and I don't think they want to, because they're actually comfortable with laying hands on their physical significant other. Or they might cry about it, but they might not actually do something about it. And that's just not normal. That's not normal. But that goes into another topic, and those that is like people who, and I'm not gonna use like an extreme situation like a mentally ill person for this, but people who, it's like they're mentally stunted. Like they are an adult, but they have the mindset of a 15 or 16-year-old. You know what I'm talking about, Auntie? It's like
Sorry, say that again.
I said, the people, like the next topic is like people who are mentally stunted, who are adults, full grown adults, but think like a 16-year-old.
Oh, like me.
No, 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 no. Like it's I've heard some people say something like that about like people in this space. Like somebody said something like that about ism, and how he's always talking about macking and being a pimp and stuff like that. He's like real.
You see,
He
the thing is,
talks
I don't
as if
watch
he's like a 16 year
Ism's
old or something.
channel. I don't watch Ism's channel just because I've cut back on a lot of the content that I watch. But the thing about it is this: I don't. I think it's more about living in a time gone past, like living in the glory days, like when you was that age. Maybe that was the peak and the best time of your life, or the best, the best you were performing. Like you haven't really got anything to show for yourself since that age. So in that respect, yeah, I can't speak for him personally, but definitely that is something that's out here a lot where people are just leaving school and they're just aimless, and those were the best years of their life, and that's all they live for, is talking about those good old days when they were on the football team, or cheerleading or whatever. That's their biggest accomplishment.
So they're
So
not content with where they're at all.
no, they're not content, and they haven't really progressed anywhere since those days when they were the it girl or the top boy or whatever. Now they faded, they fell off. And so in order for them to feel like they're somebody, they have to go back in time to those days. And I have that kind of situation. I will admit that is something that I personally struggle with. Like, I do suffer with imposter syndrome, because I do feel a lot of the time like I'm pretending to be an adult, and I'm very much an adult and very much a middle-aged woman, but I still I don't want to grow up with a bit of Peter Pan syndrome, I guess. And it's like maturing and doing certain things. How can I say? I can't really put it into words. Like, putting away the things you used to do as a young person, and doing all the grown up things you have to do. It's like, do you really have to do those things anymore? I can't really articulate it well, but I know in times gone by, you were forced to mature and grow up. You went to war, you had to do laborious work, and, you know, you were forced to be a mature person. You were held to a certain standard in society. But now things have kind of changed where it's okay to be goofy and youthful and childish, even as an older person. And a lot of people are not necessarily growing up and maturing and thinking about things in a mature way because they just don't have to. So it's crazy. I wouldn't say that anybody in this space is particularly like that. I've never felt that, but there are, yeah, it's definitely a reality for some people.
I mean,
Oh, that's cool. That's
um,
fair enough. I understand.
but yeah, some people like they just don't realize that life moves on, and I'm not talking about you, because I think you've talked about it before. You actually have a specific trauma that you went through with your family. So with these people in this space, they have trauma, but it's to a much lesser degree that most people probably deal with, but they have to get over that on their own time. And really and truly, I think they should just refrain from speaking until they can get over something like that.
Yeah, I don't know. I know what you mean.
And
I know
being
what
and
you mean.
being in a relationship with a person like that is so toxic, because it's kind of it's kind of quiet, but it's like what they have right now is not good enough. You get what I'm saying? Like they're
Probably
not
going to be
content
very
with it.
hard because it's like trying to negotiate with a child. If that person is kind of stuck in the past mentally, their maturity level is stunted. Like, even their ability to comprehend, like, this is not right, this is not appropriate, or it's probably quite taxing. I'm trying to engage children, and you have to have a lot of patience. So
And
it,
that's
it must take a
facts.
lot.
Patience patience is a must have for like a relationship. And I don't mean to
Yeah,
like tell anybody like what to do in their relationships, but listen, if, if you're going to be building anything with anybody, patience is a must have. Like I remember like I saw a therapist, just because my like college was providing the service, and it's not necessarily that
Hmm.
I have like a major trauma to deal with anything, but I just like
It's
it
good to
can't
have that
hurt. You know what
support.
I'm
Yeah.
saying? Yeah, it can't hurt. And so what she said, because there were no black male therapists that I could go to, she always said like a relationship is two imperfect people trying to make a life together.
Yeah.
And patience is required for two imperfect people to have with each other. So it's like in such a situation as this, where we're talking about people trying to build a life together or coexist with each other and love and dote on each other when appropriate and necessary. Um, if you don't have patience with that other person and you're not actually content with your current situation, then you probably shouldn't be there,
Yeah.
because it's like a subconscious thing. You don't think that they're good enough because you don't think that what you have now is good enough. You don't think what you have now is better than what you used to have.
It's true. And
And that's
I
no
always say
good.
to people, strive to be with somebody that, strive to be with somebody that you really want and who wants you back. Like, don't settle. I don't agree with things like, oh, get with somebody because on paper it looks good, and then, oh, love will come later. Like, I think resentment will come later, not love, because you don't really like who this person is at their core. And that's not going to change. Who that person is as an adult person, that's pretty much who they're going to be. So either you like them or you don't. And so it's going to be quite difficult if you're with somebody and there's no respect, there's no appreciation for who the person is, or, and like you said, patience. I don't think relationships really have to be that challenging when you really like the person. When you really like the person and you gel well and you're a good fit for each other, it's not hard to have patience, because you care about the person and you care about what they're interested in. You care about what is going to make them happy. You desire to make them happy. So it's only hard work when you're with the person with whom it's not really a good fit, and you need to be honest with yourself, not you personally, but anybody, that is this person a good fit for me? Could I see myself growing old with this person and being content and happy with this person? And I mean, I can't say if the answer is no, leave your relationship, especially if you're married. I'm not going to suggest that, but you've got to know yourself and then evaluate your situation accordingly.
And that's facts. That's facts. Like, and I've said it before. Like content creators can say whatever they want, but ultimately you have to make that decision based on your situation. And that's why when recently I was on Shay Shardae's platform, um, I talked about like the space being somewhat like hyper accusatory, and me trying to be more hyper specific when I speak. And that's, I think, something that I'm doing with this right here, because I'm very particular in the people that I'm talking about. I'm not trying to paint with a broad brush in this. Um,
Okay.
you have to make the decision based on your situation. Don't let nobody on this YouTube platform, young or old, tell you what to do with your situation. All you can do is just learn and then apply what you've learned.
Yeah,
And if leaving is the best option for you, then you better be sure about it, because most people won't take back somebody who left them.
that's true. Because I think it's scarcity mindset, maybe, or they don't have other options, or it's just familiar, I guess.
I understand what you're saying. They gravitate to people who make them feel comfortable or situations that make them feel comfortable. And if that's comfortable for that type of person or a person in general, they're going to gravitate towards that. They're going to sabotage relationships. They're going to lie. They're going to cheat. They're going to basically strive for the situation that they want, subconscious or conscious. But moving on to our next topic, volatile reactors, right? And what I mean by this are people who it's weird because when you do something wrong, you want people to be able to call you out, but what you don't want them to do is blow things out of proportion. And that's what a volatile reactor does. And it's like when they make mistakes, they try to minimize it, but when you make mistakes, they even if it's not a big mistake, like they'll treat it as if it's like the worst thing in the world. And
I hate things like I hate when people do that. I have some real experience with people like this. A former friend and flatmate, I had to ghost her because, she was a friend, but it was almost like a battered wife situation. I was the passive one, and she was a volatile reactor. She, at times she was violent. Like, I remember one time I must have said something to her, and I'm not saying I was innocent in the situation. I think we both had toxic tendencies as I'm looking at this now. But, one time I must have said something to her, and because she didn't like my tone or something, she was counting change and she just threw like a handful of change. And it hit me so hard. Like one of the coins burst my lip. Like she used to think it was funny to kind of push her finger into my forehead or, push me in the head kind of thing. Like
I'll
I was,
mush you upside your head.
yeah, like I was a child kind of thing. And, but she did have she was another person with a seriously hot temper, but she was also somebody who, if you said or did something, she could really blow it out of proportion. Like if we went out and she wasn't enjoying herself, we all had to leave. And then it was, if you were a good friend, you wouldn't let me leave by myself. You would follow me because something might happen to me. But it's like, nobody asked you to leave. We're all having a good time. You're the only one who's got a problem. So why do we all have to leave? Because you want to go. So, I mean, I'm telling you, man, this toxic behavior, it doesn't just go for romantic relationships. At any point you could be in a situation with somebody and they feel like it could be a family member, it could be a so-called friend, and when that person feels like they have the upper hand or they can take control of you, they will try.
That's sad to say, because even this like goes across like relationships with like family members, but it has to be said because volatile reactors like they'll and you kind of touched on this earlier, Auntie, but they won't admit to anything they do wrong. They won't admit to how they contributed to the situation. They'll just blow everything out of proportion. You try to tell them, shh, calm down, I know I messed up, but and like try to get your say in. But a person like
Only
that,
makes
they
them
can't
more
really.
angry.
Yeah, it makes them like even angrier.
And I would say that like I could imagine it's more like a parent even, because if you're in a position where you're the child and that person is like, oh, this is my house or these are my rules or whatever, and the child is trying to explain, or because my mother was that kind of person. She was very, just she just went on and on and on about certain things. And it's like, I can't even have open communication with you because you're going to go to such extremes so quickly. that the conversation is going to basically go off the rails, and we're not going to resolve anything. You're not going to hear anything, because the moment I utter a particular word or phrase, you're already worked up. And it's like, it's not even worth it to try and have this conversation, because I know it's going to go to a real, like a war zone immediately. Would you say like that's something that you would see with parents, maybe? Who,
You can see it with your parents, and in which case, like when you're, especially when you're a grown adult, you have to set those boundaries, and that like
yeah.
leads into the boundary conversation. Like, listen, the way you're acting, I don't like it. I'm not a kid no more, so I can't accept that kind of disrespect, even if you're mama, even if you're dad,
And I
and
think that's going to be quite hard if
especially
you're
like,
used to that, somebody kind of jumping on you all the time. It's going to
yeah.
be quite hard to stand up to that person and be like, I'm not tolerating you talking to me like this anymore.
And in the when you stand up to them, they get offended about it. Like, what you say to me?
Yeah, I mean, it must be quite scary, because you're still, like you were talking about regressing earlier, and people being trapped, in a child in an adult's body. But when that parent or that person starts, and I get this when people kind of talk to me quite harshly, because my mother was very strict, like, you couldn't talk back, you couldn't answer back. And when people take a certain tone with me, or they kind of clap, I just seize up. I'm like, uh, I don't know what to say, because I'm so used to, as soon as like the adults are talking, you got to stop talking. So it's like, how do you even broach that? And that was one of the reasons why I had to get rid of that friend, because she kind of used that kind of tactic that my mother would use, taking this very authoritarian tone, and raising her voice and getting very animated. And I was like, oh, any minute now she's going to probably thump me, so let me just keep my mouth shut, and then eventually she'll calm down and go away. And it's like,
They work themselves up. That's the thing too. They work themselves up to that point of anger.
yeah, I think looking for things to be upset about.
Yeah, and sometimes people will do that when they want to break off a situation too. Um, it's kind of like what that old saying goes. It's like, if you want a reason to like hate somebody, be angry at somebody, or shout at somebody, you'll find one every time.
Yeah.
So like some people, like they do that in an effort to like break off a situation, but they don't want to be the bad guy.
Oh, I mean, I came across that concept in this space. I didn't know that it actually was a thing. Like that people will start to act weird. They will, and the funny thing is, I I've done that with a guy who I was like, I didn't realize I was doing it, or that I had done this, but it's like there's certain things I don't really care for. But I was dating guys who had these attributes or these traits or behaviors. And then it's like, why are you dating this person and they do this thing that you don't really like? And it's like, well, it's, maybe you can live with it, or it's really not that bad. And you start trying to convince yourself of whatever, like, it's not that bad, or I can live with it, or maybe he'll change, or if I ask, he'll drop this habit, or whatever, whatever. And then you're like, oh, well, this is an excuse to walk away from this relationship. And it's like, I did that a few times, and I thought, well, I did this like one or two times. And then, like, the third time, I was like, why are you dating this type of person when you know this is going to be an issue? And this was before I came into the manosphere. And so when afterwards I learned that, people, they do these things, like they pick partners that have flaws, that they can then use as an excuse to leave, or they start arguments and things like that. It's a subconscious thing to sabotage the relationship to bring it to an end. And I was like, wow, I didn't even realize that that's what I was doing, you know. So I've never been a person who starts arguments, but I definitely did other things where I was just like, this relationship is not, it's not going anywhere. I need to get out. I know I will use that back door that I left open. You know, it's just, it's crazy. It's crazy.
I and
Demetris.
and the thing is those situations really, the only appropriate way to exit a situation like that is it really is as simple as ghosting them, or or just saying, hey, I don't accept this type of behavior anymore. Or you can let them know, like I just said, and then tell them to work on that, and then you leave without the intention of coming back. Because
Yeah.
the reason I say something like that is, and I know it's harsh, but you have to think about the process it takes to get rid of a habit. And we just talked about regression a little bit. Still ghosting? See, the thing is, I'm not even really an advocate of ghosting, but this is one of those few times, like along with the physical abuse situations, where I'd say ghosting is okay. Because I think in most cases, I think ghosting is used wrong. Because I think that's only to really be used in extreme situations. But in a situation like this, I think it'd be okay to do, because
Yeah, I'm for ghosting.
yeah,
Like if you was in a,
because the person would the person will change if they want to change.
and also if the person sees that you're going out the door, they will put on a pretense in order to make you stay, to give you the impression they've changed, or that they've heard your complaint, or that they're really actually going to work on the issue. But all of that is just like a facade to get you to drop your guard and to stay. And if this is a violent person or a volatile person, they could literally be trying to set you up because they're like, you're never going to leave. Like, I'm going to make sure that you never leave. So you don't want to play, you don't want to expose your hand. You need to get out of that situation because it's dangerous. It's actually life threatening. It's not just, oh, it's a bit harmful for your mental health. This person, you don't really know what they're capable of because they have a certain violent tendency about them. So you don't want them to even have the inkling that you're going to make a move. You just set it up and you go, because if they know you're planning to leave, they're going to ramp up whatever they have planned because they don't want you to leave. You're their narcissistic supply. So why are they going to let you leave?
And even if, like, and this is a perfect segue into the next one, even if you like tell them, they'll hold a grudge. Even if you do like stay around, they'll hold a grudge against you, and that's no good. Especially in relationships with your partner, you can't be holding grudges like that.
Yeah,
Like, it's really best just to leave than to hold a grudge.
it's true. It's true.
And when something happens, have to you have to say, okay, do I hate the person or do I hate what they did? And more often times than not, it's going to be you hate what they did or you dislike what they did. And do you dislike what they did, or I'm sorry, do you dislike the person more than what they did? And more often than not, the answer will be no. You love that person. You just hate that they did this thing. It just made you uncomfortable that they did this thing. And if y'all can get past that, then go ahead and get past that. But if you can't, then it's really best that you don't.
It's a wrap, basically.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
especially
true.
like when we talk about things like cheating, most people
Yeah,
can't get over that. I mean, like, there's the whole meme, like, before you take that girl back, just understand that at one point it fell out and she put it back in. It's like, if you can't get over it, then don't do it.
yeah.
Then
When there's
don't
no
continue
trust,
with it. Go
there is
ahead.
no relationship. And if you're going to keep bringing it
Exactly.
up and throwing it in the person's face, eventually you're going to drive that person away because they're just like, I'm tired of you bringing it up. I said I'm sorry, you know. And it's
Yeah.
yeah, it's better for your mental health and theirs because you're not over it and you're just beating yourself up mentally. So if you really can't let it go, then you're better off just to let the relationship go and move on because a lot of people can't get over it. They won't get, and it's not to say, oh, just get over it, but it hurts them so deeply that the relationship won't be the same.
You good, Auntie? You got that background noise in there.
Sorry, I was walking with the laptop.
Oh, you good, you good. Um, but yeah, it's really best just to break the situation off because the and when I say grudge holding, and Auntie kind of touched on that, like with the whole "I'm sorry, I already said that I'm sorry" conversation, they'll start trying to hold that situation over your head. And even if we're not even talking about like a partner, a romantic relationship, right? That's not even good to do in a friendship. That's just bad people skills in general, to be honest with you. To
True.
hold something over somebody's head.
And then the thing is this, the person who is the one who did the wrong deed, they're always wondering when is that person gonna bring that thing up. Like again, my mother and the friend that threw the handful of coins, they have this trait. That was one of the reasons why my friend stressed me out. And that's probably why I gravitated towards her because it was kind of like the dynamic I had with my mother. You know, it's like stuff that happened years prior, my mother would bring it up. Not necessarily something that I'd done wrong to her. Maybe just like I got a bad report at school or something. And years later, she was still bringing it up, bringing it up, bringing it up. And it's like, it always weighs on the back of your mind, like, when is this thing going to get thrown in my face again? You know, or when you say or do something, you're like, oh my God, you know, it's like another charge has been added against my name. So at any moment, I need to prepare to have this thrown back at me. Oh, do you remember 2 weeks ago you said and this and it hurt my feelings? And you're like, well, I don't even remember what I did 2 minutes ago. But they store it up because they're looking for that opportunity to use it as a weapon against you. And you just can't have a relationship like this where the person is basically holding something over your head all the time. Or potentially, it's very stressful, you know?
Yeah, it's very stressful because like you hear some dudes talk about like um their lady like throwing a situation up in their face like here and there, but gosh, when it happens, is it unpleasant? Because I've been there before, and it wasn't even intentional or anything. It was just like a misunderstanding of the situation. but she held on to that original understanding of the situation, and she framed the situation from like her perspective, even though I told her and I proved to her that's not what happened. And really and truly, like whenever that happens, you're probably wasting your own time.
And that's really sad because if you're saying that it wasn't even an intentional act, we're not talking about, say, for example, oh, you cheat on somebody, which is intentional, like you chose to make that decision. It was just maybe you harmlessly, innocuously said something or did something, but the person's perception alone turned into something else that it wasn't meant to be. And then you can't convince the person otherwise because they're like, well, it's not about what you meant, it's about how it made me feel. It's like, but I didn't mean to hurt your feelings. Well, you did. It's like, well, what do you say to that point? It's like, okay, I said I'm sorry. Like, I can't change who I am overnight just because your feelings might be hurt. But this is the kind of hoops that these kind of people want you to jump through. And that's why it's very taxing when you engage people like this, because their demands are not reasonable. Even the things that they complain about sometimes are beyond reason.
And if you were to reciprocate that energy, they'd act like they'd minimize it, is what I'm saying, pretty much.
Definitely.
That's and that's the part that really kills me. They can dish it, but they can't take it. And really, you don't even want to give it, but you're just trying to get them to understand how it feels so that they can stop.
That's true. And that probably can turn you into a person you don't really want to be, because you start playing these mental games with these people because if you say or do something, it's going to be perceived a certain way, and they drive you to being a kind of person you don't want to be, or bringing out certain behavior that you just don't want. It makes you quite like a volatile person because it's just stressful. They're stressing you and making you have to basically do and say things that you don't really want to. But this is the kind of mental gymnastics they want to do with you. And if you don't fight back, then they will walk all over you. But then that's why in those situations, as you said, it's about ghosting these kind of people, not because you want to hurt them or teach them a lesson, because you've got to protect yourself, because they will drive you insane otherwise.
Yeah, and that's facts. Like, and that's the most heartbreaking aspect of it is like when you let a person know and you see them trying, but the change is like it's too minimal, so you have to ultimately do what's best for you. That's the heartbreaking ones, like when you have to leave for your own good, but you see them trying, but it's not enough change, or they're regressing too much. You know what I'm saying? That's the heartbreaking one.
You've experienced that. You know, the friend that I ended up, funnily enough, I actually did ghost her. I ghosted her for about 10 years. I just stopped talking to her and I got really busy. And then, every time she came to the house, I was always out or unable to respond to whatever she wanted. So I didn't see her for 10 years. And she showed up one day on my doorstep really late at night because I finished late. And then she was crying and, why didn't you tell me there was a problem? And, I was like, everybody told you there was a problem because you have a real bad temper. And as you said, uh, volatile, overreacting. She could become quite violent, and she used to hold grudges. We told her these things, but she didn't take it on board. And then she tried to cry a little bit and you should have told me and let's hug it out kind of thing. But I was still like wary and I still kept my distance and I just drifted away into the background again. Like we stopped communicating and I haven't spoken to her again for years now. But we buried the hatchet and I said, everything is cool, but I don't want it. I said to myself in my heart, like, but I don't want you back in my life because I suspect you're still probably toxic. And that behavior that you used to display, I can imagine it would only be a matter of time before that controlling, um, like I don't use the word abusive, but there was a bit. It was technically a little,
Aggressive
yeah, that aggressive behavior. It will probably come
resurfaces.
back,
Yeah.
and I don't want to be in that situation again where you know you're inviting me to things and I don't really want to go, but I don't want to say no, and you know you're asking me to do things. Or one of the things I really hate is being friends with people and they're wrong and they're loud and wrong and they're looking to you like back me up, and it's like I don't really want to back you up because you're clearly in the wrong.
No, I'd be like whenever that has happened in my life, I'll like don't include me in this. Don't include me in this. And I'll usually like a couple of hours after what happens, then I'll pull him to the side and I was like, you're wrong, right? And then I'll be like, let me explain this to you from a top-down perspective. This person did this, you said this in this way, and that caused this person to act this way, and now y'all can't get along with each other, and now we're here. You were in the wrong. So either
But
go
that's gonna work with a
apologize.
reasonable person.
I'm sorry?
That's gonna work with a reasonable person.
I know.
But a volatile person, an overreactor, a person who can't take accountability, then no matter what you say, it's always everybody else's fault but theirs. You see.
And
So I was
people
like,
who are like similar to that are like stonewallers. And I don't know if you know what a stonewaller is, but it's
I think
basically it's
silent treatment.
basically I'm sorry?
I think it's silent treatment, isn't it?
Yeah. And they do it on purpose.
Yeah, I'm not really a stonewaller. I'm a blabber.
Yeah, I'm
I'll
more prone to talk with my partner if I have an issue. I'm the same way.
yeah.
Um, but like that brings us right into our next topic. Um, like stonewallers tend to like give silent treatment to their partner, and it'll be so random when it happens. Like y'all are just talking and you accidentally say something that offends them, but you don't know that it offended them, and they'll just stop talking to you.
Oh
Like
wow. Okay.
mid conversation, they'll just shut down. And people have talked about it in this space a lot, like especially with the ladies, because they want their partner to be quote unquote emotionally available, and that can't happen when your the partner basically like shuts down mid conversation and just stops talking to them and won't talk for anything.
Oh
um
wow. That's crazy.
yeah, basically stonewaller is like silent treatment on like a whole nother level, because me, I'll stop, but only to like I'll tell my partner that what you said just hurt me, and we can't continue unless I hear an apology. That's
Yeah, I mean
different.
that's
That's
normal. Yeah.
different than a stonewaller who will just shut down completely. It's like we talk about this sometimes in the relationship dating conversation. Like what's something that a lot of people in this space can probably relate to? A woman with many walls up, a
Mm,
heart of stone. She let you in, and then you said something, and it hurt her feelings, and she just shuts you out.
yeah,
She won't talk to you. She won't look at you. None
that's
of that.
crazy. Like I could never imagine just mid, just mid interaction, just shutting down like that. That's crazy.
And usually it comes from a place like of trauma, but
Yeah,
and I'll say what other people have said in a conversation like this. It's okay to be messed up, but it's not okay to stay that way.
yeah,
And really and truly, like a stonewaller probably shouldn't even be in a relationship, especially if you go and behave like that. Um, and it sounds so weird, like talking this way, but there is like some do's and don'ts within a relationship, and just shutting down like that isn't the way to go. Like that's not the move.
yeah, definitely. Like I think a lot of people shouldn't be in relationships because they have issues that they need to work through. And it's okay. It's better to acknowledge that. I think you mentioned earlier on about being self aware. A lot of people are not self aware, that they don't sit down and examine themselves internally to see what is going on with me. Like, I've told this story before. Like, I was in a long term relationship, and when that ended, I kind of met a couple of guys or something like this, and they were just the issues that I had with the long term relationship. They were similar in the guys that I dated after, and I was like, why are you picking guys who are emotionally unavailable? That was kind of like part of the problem. And I was like, these people have issues why you can't connect with them. So obviously, there's no future. So why keep picking them? And it's like, you are the common denominator. So you have to look at yourself and see what is in you that is attracted to individuals like this. Because, there are different types of people out here, but you seem to be getting into the similar situation over and over and over. So you need to work out what's wrong with you. And you kind of don't need to be dating anybody until you can work it out. And so people do need to sit down, take a step back. I mean, I'm not a person who's like afraid to be alone or anything like that. But there are some people that's a real issue for them. Like they jump from relationship to relationship. They can't be single. They never know themselves. They never reflect. And as a result, they don't know who they are or what they want or what their issues are. And then they just drift from one situation to a next. And it never ends well because they keep making the same mistakes, but they never seem to learn from the mistake. That's why they keep making it. So it's okay for people to be single and to say, you know what, I need to take a step back and I need to get, as you said, you went and got therapy. You didn't necessarily need it, but if it's available, why not take advantage? And a lot of people need it, but they're not taking advantage of the resources that are at hand for them.
Agreed. And all in the name of pride too. And that's kind of sad. Like you'd forego things that can actually benefit you, or potentially you'd pass up a situation in which case you're damaged, you can hurt a person, and and rather than pass the situation up and sparing that person like your negative habits until you work through through with them or through them, you'll actually like go through with it, and both of y'all will end up like hating each other's guts. um
That's true.
that is like all so sad. And it's all in the name of pride. And what I mean by that is people don't want to admit that something is wrong with them.
Yeah, that's true.
People don't like to admit when they need help. And that is one thing that I appreciate about us Gen Zers is we're not afraid to ask for help. It might look weak in the moment, but asking for help is so it helps a lot. It helps a lot.
Yeah, the culture has really changed. Like, it's so funny that you said that because I was thinking about that today. Like, there are a number of things about this generation which is a little bit is different. But then the way culture has moved, it's opened up a lot of conversation. It's just so weird that you say that because I can't remember what I was thinking about, but it was like feminism, and I was thinking about just how men and women, the way we operate is different from the past, and things that in the past you wouldn't say. Like, even if you had an issue, you would keep it to yourself. And that wasn't necessarily the healthiest thing to do. And now it's like certain things are more commonplace to talk about. And that has meant that people can get the help they need. They can get access to resources or programs. People are creating things that people actually need because they saw there was a need and there was no services available. And because people had the courage to talk and say, no, this is a real problem and a lot of people are suffering or struggling, they've actually created things to help people in these different areas. And so, asking for help can be quite frightening because you still don't know how it's going to be received and what people will think about you. And, are you actually going to get help? Are you going to get believed and supported? So it does take a lot of courage to ask for help. And ultimately, it's better you ask for help than you suffer in silence and then you end up going a bad way, kind of thing, because you were scared or worried what people might think, blah, blah, blah.
I agree. And the reason why I said what I said is because I'm not only thinking about people who are in situations with these people, but there's more often than not, there's probably people who are the people that we're talking about and who are going to see this video too, and they might deny it at first, and that's okay.
Yeah,
Actually, maybe let me call you on what you're probably doing right now. You're probably saying, "No, that's not true. No, 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 no. That's not me shaking your head and stuff like that." But actually, you're going to go back later and you're going to think about that situation and you're going to realize that I was the issue. I had
yeah,
more of a part to play in the relationship's downfall or in the current problems that um, her and I relationship are having, or even in a friendship are having. Um, and then you're going to try to make the change, whether the person is still in your life or not. Or you're going to at least look to start the change. And that's a beautiful thing, but it has to start with you.
yeah. It
Like
definitely
you
has to
can't you
start.
can't wait for your partner to bring it up to you no more. Like you have to start the change. They can talk to you all you want, but if you're not set on changing, then you're not gonna change.
And it's just an unfair situation. It's unfair for your partner to have to be the counselor and the therapist and basically wait for you to get it together. Like if you've been together for some time and you really love each other, and as we talked about earlier, patience and things like that, you want to give that person the benefit of the doubt and time to get themselves together. But at what cost? Like, is that person is that person going to get it together before you have been drained mentally? before you maybe have been drained financially, or because dealing with a taxing person, it can cost. It can cost you money. It could cost you your job. It could cost you your health. Look at like Sierra and Russell Wilson, or I mean, Russell Wilson is not necessarily playing badly now, but if Sierra continues to do certain weird things, or let's use a better example, Will and Jada. you know Will was at the pinnacle of his career, but that toxic relationship that he has made him do something that basically has sullied his whole career. Like, instead of being the guy who, the first black man to win, what was it, actor of the year or something like that, like the
Yeah.
first, instead of him being remembered for that, and all of the black people that put that was it Oscars or whatever it was together, and all the people who won awards, like literally all everyone is talking about is the slap that was heard around the world. It's like just being joined to the wrong person. It can cost you so much in the blink of an eye. And we know it wasn't just, it was, it's 20 years that she's been working on him, but you don't know when you're going to snap as a result of that constant mental pressure that this person is putting you under. So, at what cost is it going to come? Waiting for that person to change and get their act together. Are they going to change? Or are they only telling you they're going to change to keep you around, but they're not actually going to do it? So,
in situations like that, I think it's like you're doing like a mercy to break the relationship off. It's an act of mercy, because especially in those physical abuse situations, in the very 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 few cases where the person realizes how wrong they are and what they're doing, they go ahead and break up, and the person's like, no, no, don't go, and the person has to almost ghost them. But in the cases where they don't ghost them, they literally tell them, like, listen, I have to do what I have to do to get better. I have to change, and then maybe we can try this again. But more often than not, after they change, after all the time it takes for them to change, the person's probably not interested anymore because the spell is broken.
yeah, it's true. You're
And
not
they
you're not going
and
to
they
see this
realize how
person
bad that
say,
situation was.
mm,
So it's really an act of mercy. So in those situations, if you're the wrongdoer, I think it's better that you leave, because it's the act of mercy. Because, and I've heard somebody talk like this before, and it was a person who was it a sociopath? No, 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 no. It was something like a serial manipulator, and
yeah.
he broke it off with her. And like 3 years later, she said, I appreciate him breaking it off with me and taking the time to go change, but I will not get back together with him because of the scars that he caused me. So
Okay.
it's quite literally an act of mercy. Like, you're showing the person you care about them by recognizing how wrong you are and distancing yourself from them.
And that's awesome, because at the end of the day, I mean, it's not awesome that the person was physically abusive, but the person cares enough about the other person to say, I care about you enough to not hurt you anymore, and I can't control my behavior, so I need you to go. That's very different to a person who, is using that violence to keep the person there actually. So,
Yeah, it's it's weird to talk about, because usually when we talk about situations like between two people, and like it's of like a partner relationship, you're doing things to keep the other person there, to keep the other person happy. But in a case like this, where a person knows like it's not what's best for the other person, so they choose to leave, it's different and it's weird because it's like a it's not like you love them in the same way. It's just more like you care about that person enough not to, like what you said, hurt them anymore. So you're going to distance yourself from them so that you don't cause them any more pain. And you're going to give that person time to think about what you did and why you did ultimately what you did in the end. And if y'all come back together, then hey, listen, that's great. But I think that if they, like, two people like that do get back together after the change occurs, I think the relationship and like the patience is going to be a lot less lenient.
Yeah, definitely.
So is it like even a
Basically, start
situation that
again
you'd even want to
fresh.
continue?
Yeah,
Because it's
you
like
start
living
from
on the
fresh.
edge, yeah?
Sorry, say that again.
I said it's like living on the edge.
Yeah, I mean, you can never go back to that dreamy state like it was at the beginning of the first time. You're going to have to establish a new set of rules, a new set of boundaries, and basically start again as if this is a person you've never met before. Because technically they are, because they're changing and they're evolving as a person, but also because how things start is how things will continue. So if you pick it up from where it left off, it's only a matter of time before those old behaviors and habits from both of you start again, and then you're going to have a repeat cycle. You want to start again afresh, like, hi, my name is, your name is, and we start again from scratch.
Yeah, and it's probably gonna like feel a bit artificial at first, but y'all, like, the two of y'all will probably get used to it. And it's probably not like a situation where you can't really mention anything that happened before, but at the same time, like, you can't remind each other of like the negative stuff, because when you think about the positive stuff and remind each other of the positive stuff that you went through before, that can be a trail to thinking about like the negative stuff that
Yeah,
ultimately occurred, and that can like distance you from each other, and that's the exact opposite of what you want.
it's true.
So in most cases, I think it's just best to just leave it where it was. Just leave and let that situation be what it was, and then fix yourself in the process. And you might care about that person, but like I said, it's okay to care about a person from a distance. You don't have to check in on them. Just, if you're a Christian, you can pray that the people that you've hurt in your past are doing better now,
Yeah,
and pray for forgiveness.
definitely.
Do you have any other toxic traits that you want to highlight?
No, I mean, like I said at the beginning, I couldn't believe that it was so extensive, because a lot of people use things like the silent treatment, which we know is toxic, but then the way you broke it down, I didn't realize that. I mean, it's not something personally I would do, but I can imagine a lot of people probably think this kind of behavior is acceptable. And as I've said with the examples that I've so like I've mentioned, to be honest with you, apart from maybe one person, all of the people that I talked about were women, and they were friends or colleagues and things like that. it wasn't even like romantic partners. So this idea that, being in a relationship with somebody who's toxic is purely a romantic thing, you know, it's crazy. I can't think of any other toxic behaviors per se, because we kind of touched on all of them, like the gaslighting, uh, violent, being physically violent, you know, obviously financially abusive is another uh, buzzword that was going around last year. I don't know what your thoughts are on financial abuse.
I'll go ahead and touch on that. Um, See, here's the thing: financially abusive people, to me, are just insecure people because they're doing that to like keep you from moving out of a situation that you don't want to be in. But the way that I see it, like, and I'm talking to the financially abusive people right now, like, why would you want to keep somebody in a situation that's ultimately going to cause them to resent you in the end, especially if you have kids with them? Because I understand you want like the way of life that you have to continue, but it's a lie. It's there's no other way to explain it. It's a lie. Like it must kill you on the inside when you have like work friends asking you about your relationship, how are things going, and you have to tell them, oh, it's going great, better than ever. Like, why would you want to live a lie? I don't get it.
Okay, and that makes sense. So are you saying the person who's being financially abused, or the person who is doing the abusing, is the one living the lie?
The person who is doing the financial abusing is living the lie. Because that the person who is being abused, that's like their own personal hell because they don't even want to be there. They're not retreating into the situation for normalcy, but they're there because it is the thing that is keeping their current level of stability in life in the socioeconomic class. That's why they stay. That's why the abused person stays, because the other person is providing them with the lifestyle that they want, with the essentials that they need, and they probably haven't worked in forever. So it's going to be a whole process for them to build their own money. So that's my thoughts. Do you have any?
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. No, that was fantastic.
All right. Um. So this has been like one of the greatest live streams that I've ever done or
It was good.
participated in. Like, and especially like with the last time that we interacted, I talked about wanting to put more content out there that's really and truly purely educational, and that's going to make the audience a bit more intelligent. Wish more people were watching, but hey, it is what it is. It'll happen in time. And
It's about the restream gang gang.
yeah, the restream, the people who are gonna watch the replay, shout out to y'all. Y'all are probably my largest audience than as opposed to my live crowd. Um, just know this, and I'm talking to my audience on this. Whatever we said today, if you relate to any of it, carefully examine your situation and then react accordingly. Really and truly, like, we can say whatever we want to say, but you're the one who has to initiate the action. And you have to be sure of what you're doing when you do that. Go ahead, Auntie.
Yeah, I just want to second that. At the end of the day, we have to know who we are and what we want. And if we don't, we're going to end up attracting something that we ultimately don't want. So it's crucial that we take that time to get to know ourselves, to be alone, to be silent. I know that sounds a bit airy fairy, but it's great being alone where you reflect and then you move forward with that knowledge of self so that you can find a good fit for you in terms of a mate. You don't waste your time or other people's time, and you don't display toxic behaviors. If any of these behaviors are you or me, then we have a idea where we need to work so that we can catch ourselves and say this behavior is detrimental to this person. This is toxic behavior. I don't want to be a toxic person. I want to bring positivity to this relationship and this situation, not manipulation and control. And as a result, it's going to lead to much better interactions for us with everybody, not just romantically.
And that's facts. Like if you're really working at your situation, you should see an overall benefit in all aspects of your life.
Definitely.
Because this is one of those things that really affect every aspect of your life, from the stranger that you interact with to the person that you call your lover.
Yeah.
So if you see yourself on this list, just analyze your situation day in and day out. If you don't think that you're going to be able to change in a timely manner, or you think that you're really hurting your partner, especially to those who are committers of DV, then I would say distance yourself from that person. Because listen, you don't you don't want to be that guy or gal. You don't want to be that person who is going to be on the other side of the jail cell
That's true.
because you couldn't keep your hands to yourself, because you didn't position that person properly in your life. You didn't view the situation from a proper lens. It's going to be pitiful for you if you do that or end up like that. Or if we see you on the news, that's going to be horrible for you.
It's sad, yeah. It's unnecessary.
So, yeah, this has been a great stream. It's been a long time coming, like I said before. I had a real good time, Auntie. I don't know about you. Thanks
Yeah,
for
it was excellent. It was great.
thanks to Bronzebird for showing up. Thanks for both of you for being mods. I don't know if anybody's like commented on my stream and said some wild stuff, but I'm sure if you ever saw something, you'd take care of it.
We took
And
care.
I
Yeah,
think this is the beginning of a great channel, a helpful channel, a positive channel. I think this is the beginning of something great.
definitely. Thank you so much for the hard work that you put in. I will applaud you because you were the one who actually uh, got the topic together. You did all of the research, and then you was an excellent host as well. So thank you so much for inviting me. Thank you so much for all of the hard work that you put in, because I really had a good time. And as an introvert, as we spoke earlier, I was anxious about doing a live stream, especially after not doing one for so long. But this was really cool, and we had such a great conversation. It was very productive, and it was just flowed so well. So you did a great job. So
Thank you.
compliments to the host. Yeah, well done.
Um, so I'll take some accountability here, and this is for the audience. Like, this is for the audience who wants to hear like the real end of the live stream. Um, this is my first time trying to put something together, so obviously I didn't do everything the correct way. Um, I think like my communication could have been better with organizing everything and setting deadlines. But I just wanted everything to be more conducive to two people, like for two people that had already crowded schedules as is.
Dimitri, you did fine. You did well, and it was nice. This was a great conversation. Everybody, we both got to speak. We both bounced around ideas. We both got to have plenty. Everything was excellent. It was fine. You did a great job, and it's the beginning of something great. As time goes on, especially when you have more time. At the moment, your schedule is jam packed, so it's tough. It's tough for you. You know, and this topic about toxic relationships, there's so many areas to branch into. You have a lot of work to do, my friend, so you have plenty of opportunities to practice.
Oh yeah. Practice, yeah. Practice makes perfect.
There's a lot of topics to
Especially when
cover.
public speaking as an introvert. That don't get me started on when I hit that live button. I'm like dang near. I'm not gonna say trembling, but I'm just nervous when I hit the live button.
Yeah, if you're not
It
nervous,
gets
you're not
better as
doing it
the
well.
conversation progresses. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying that I'm a pro, but I've been doing this on and off for a few years now, and I still get nervous when I hit the live button. I think a lot of people do. So, you're in good stead. Don't worry, you're fine.
All right. Everybody, this has been your host, Demetris Higashikata out.
Peace.